So this is actually our first time meeting each other in person.
Yes, it is.
But I do feel like I've known you for so long because everybody who I have met while being here in Phoenix has told me you are the person I should connect with.
That's a compliment. I never saw it happen. I mean, I'm trusting that you ain't messing around with my little moment here. But no, that's a huge statement to how much I've invested in the community and even nationally to make sure that we as women of color show up right, irrelevant of whether it's to our benefit or not, that we show up with integrity and honesty. So thank you for that compliment. It means a lot.
It is. And especially when just being Panamanian, first of all.
CCC.
But once they heard about what I was trying to do with my blog or with my content, they knew, oh, you guys are going to gravitate towards each other. And I almost felt like a stalker because I sought you out.
Stalk away.
I sought you out. And once we had that first conversation, we were on the phone for like hours, weren't we?
It was like magic. You know, it's those moments where you're like, hey, sis. Just within the first 35 seconds of it, you realize this is someone who fits into the puzzle of your life. And I'm grateful that you sought me out. I'm grateful that you listened to those people. I'm grateful that you took the time out of your schedule to get a chance to hang out with me. And I had a chance to hang out with you. So with that is a huge thank you to you.
Thank you. Because I did. And I told my husband as soon as we got off the phone, I said, I liked her energy. I liked her vibe. I was like, this is exactly what I needed because you know, just being here, trying to find friends, period, is always hard, especially when you're not from here.
Right.
But to find somebody who is of your culture.
Cultura hermana.
Oh, my goodness. I just told him, I said, I just wanted a whopping all day.
I know. It feels so natural and so home. To chat.
It is. And especially as mothers, you know, the conversation kind of flowed very naturally for us. It did. We just started off, I started off telling you how I came to seek you out. But then we were talking about, you know, you just had a baby.
Yes, little Faye.
Yes. Yeah. So we were talking about just how we have just as mothers, how we can be there for each other.
There's so many layers to that.
Yes.
You know, even allowing ourselves to be available to be helped.
Right.
You know, the acknowledging that we do need support, you know, that self-criticism that can be overwhelming when you feel like you can't do it all by yourself.
Exactly.
You know, is something that can kind of hinder us from reaching out and let alone us trying to stay in our lane and not bother or intrude or stalk, right? Our friend, it ends up leaving them feeling as if they're not needed and we don't need help. It's a cycle.
Yes, especially, you know, and I think that's kind of how I felt when I started the blog. I did it because I had our first son and I was dealing with postpartum depression. My husband travels a lot. And that's another thing we have in common, too.
Yes.
We travel so much. My husband travels a lot. And I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to or anybody who could relate. So I honestly used it almost like a journal. And I was just sharing. And it evolved. And like you said, it got to a point where I had to feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to share these pieces of myself with other people.
Yeah. But you saved lives in your voice. You know, your journal was therapy for yourself and others. And it gives permission for people to show up as their authentic self and to see so many facets of the diamond that you are. It's just not one face. There's so many different faces and it's beautiful, each one in their own right. So, and you allowing yourself to shine in your strength and weakness, you kind of gave room for everybody else to be able to do the same.
Exactly. Oh, listen to us. We're just sitting here affirming each other. I love it.
That's when the love is authentic. It's not competition.
Right.
It's a blessing. It's complimenting each other and showing up.
Exactly. And I love that that's the space that we're creating, especially for Afro-Caribbean women, to create spaces for us to feel safe, to be in fellowship, to be in community.
And to celebrate each other, you know, in a way that none other could truly understand at the depth that we can about what it's like to live in a foreign country, you know, what it's like to be in a space where what looks normal to others is not normal for you, even though you share the same shade as they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I always say that, especially living here in Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like a culture shock.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
Because I felt like everyone doesn't do, what I always say is everyone doesn't do Blackness the same way.
Exactly.
Everybody doesn't do culture the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find yourself coming into spaces, and me personally, when I come into spaces with other Black people, I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just meet and greet everyone.
Yeah.
And, you might not get that a lot of times here.
Mm-hmm.
So to find people who are like-minded and want to uplift each other, and like you said, not be in competition.
A compliment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's hard to find at times. But when you find your flock, right? And your flock gets bigger and bigger, and us finding each other is that addition to the flock. Being authentic about your intentions of why you're here. I was very clear. Whatever you need, just let me know.
Yeah.
The door is open. Let's talk, because I understood your heart from the start.
Oh,
And with that, there's no issue of vesting in someone that is good soil. And vice versa. I felt like you felt the same way for me. So when it came to family, the doors were open.
Exactly.
And that happens. Some people never had that experience in their lives. So we're quite privileged to kind of sit here and hang.
Yeah. Especially when we don't have a lot of family here.
Oh, yes.
And I remember what it was like when you had the baby and you don't have people to come over. And I just said, oh my goodness, I want to give her what I didn't have. So if you need anything, if you need me to go to the grocery store. Oh, you showed
up in every way you could. You sent text messages with, I can do this.
Yes.
And I'm sitting here, feeling cut open, and stitched back together.
You did tell me
and not knowing whether, goodness, is it too early in our relationship to say yes to the privileges that you're giving to me? But you made me very comfortable quickly, even with my own hesitation, because I don't want to run out my welcome, and say like, I need all of that and 2 more things. You hesitate, but you made it really, really, really comfortable. And I think you have a good wordplay as to how you even present how you're trying to help. And that was beautiful for me to see.
And, I think I kind of learned that by trial and error. A lot of times as people, we just say, let me know if you need anything. And listen, I need everything, but I don't know what I can ask of you. So especially when I had the boys, a lot of times people wanted to come over and help me with the baby. And I personally, I was like, I got the baby. I need y'all to do everything else. I need you to empty the garbage. I need you to make a meal, to clean this, So I wanted to make sure I didn't just say, hey, let me know if you need anything. But, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. What do you need? I can come by and, just check things out for you. I can come and make up the bed. I had to be very specific with that.
That was eye-opening for me to receive that, because you sit back and you think there's so little of your brain left with the sleep deprivation after having the baby. With your body adjusting, the hormonal fluxes that your body is going through, the requirements that people have of you still, from being in the hospital and not sleeping while you're still there to getting home and going up 3 levels of stairs. By the time I looked around, just going to the restroom was an effort. So you made it so clean cut and plain how you wanted to show up that I didn't have anything but to say, I need this, or no, I don't need that, et cetera, et cetera. You made it simple for me to think through it.
And thank you for allowing me to do that, because
a lot of times,
a lot of times it can be, especially if somebody tells us no, or it might not even mean, no, I don't want you to do it. It's like, no, I don't need it right now.
Not yet.
Yes. And sometimes that can shut people down. They might be like, you know what, I
offered on Tuesday of 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to offer again.
Yeah.
No, you were consistent. But I think one of the things about women that is a beautiful thing is when we're able to go into the space of vulnerability with each other and when we're authentic. Right now, there's no sandboxes for us to play in at 30, 40, 50 years old of age. And if we're not working together or socializing in the same network, it's hard to make new friends. But you created a sandbox space for us to be like, hey, I know you're wounded, you're healing. I've been there. I understand it. Let's talk. And even if it was just, hey, I'm just checking in with you. Those things were refreshing for me. And my baby right now is 4 months old. But as she grows, I know I have who I can count on, yourself and others who have showed up for me in ways. And I'm very comfortable not asking for help, but you made it very comfortable to be okay being vulnerable.
Thank you. Yeah. And even thinking back to like the postpartum.
Oh my gosh.
I felt like a lot of times, like I didn't know I had postpartum depression. I'm going to keep it honest.
I think most people don't.
Yeah, I didn't. My doctor had to tell me that's what was going on. I just knew I couldn't explain these feelings I was feeling. And the doctor said, I think you are going through postpartum depression. And it was because nobody talks about it. Or at that time, nobody I knew was talking about it. And that's because we are often, you know, especially after you have a baby, you're not really allowed to say, oh, I love my baby. You always have to preface it. I love my baby, but I'm exhausted because people will always respond with, but at least you got your baby.
Right. Right. Be grateful.
Happy. Yes.
Just be grateful.
Just be grateful you have your baby. I know I love my baby, but I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I don't know why I'm feeling these feelings. And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that there are some mental health issues that we need to address as well.
The breaks, I think, are key. I remember going through on Instagram and posting me dancing pregnant, you know, throughout those months that I was pregnant. And then I had the baby, and it was an impromptu birth. It wasn't something that we had planned for that time. I had just come from a photo shoot, so I looked fantastic for the post-baby moments. I was like, hey, eyeliner's still in play. But your body fights the fact that it no longer is carrying child, you know, and that fight is expressed sometimes in our temper, on our lack of patience with others and ourselves. I remember I experienced, you know, postpartum depression, and I was a pretty hyped and happy, you know, pregnant lady. So you would think, you know, you've gone through the roughest part, the baby's out of you. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
I'm grateful. And this is so key for people to hear. To have a relationship, partner, spouse, husband, co-parent, whatever the status of the individual is, that is supportive and understands what may happen, you know, as we transition into the postpartum cycle of our lives. I was frustrated with how slow I was recovering. Even though I was recovering fast, I still felt I wasn't good enough.
It's that comparison that comes in.
And it's to no one but myself. My standard of my excellence, I wanted to be able to jump back up in a week and be able to manage my portfolios and be able to prepare meals and be able to do this, and the baby's ready. And I'm sitting back and saying, you know, I'm in pain. And I pushed so hard that it came a point where I could not get up from bed. And this is why you're sending me the help messages, right?
Right.
So even with all the support, I still overdid it, thinking I would be fine. Oh, it hurts a little. Oh, it's tugging a little bit by the stitches. Oh, da-da-da. Till my body said no more. And I remember laying there. I had the TV volume a little bit too high. No one could hear me in the house. I had the door closed on top of that. TV at 25. And I couldn't find my phone. And I couldn't move my arms but the distance that they could reach.
Right.
You know, and you're sitting there realizing you overdid it. And now what? So with that moment, I think from then on, I stopped. Every time I felt something was going a little too far, immediately. It was my lesson. My permanent lesson. Because if I'm no good for me, I'm not available for that beautiful child or anyone else that depends on me.
I think I say that a lot to people. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to listen to your body. And it is not selfish to take care of yourself.
It's not. It's necessary.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's the piece that allows you to take care of others better is when you're coming from a healthy space. And allow yourself the mental health break. That's coming up, you know, us recognizing the mental health needs for women of color. We need to stop and breathe.
We do.
Even if that means passing the baby on or passing every responsibility away and just soaking up a moment of meditation.
And a lot of times it's because we feel like we have to earn breaks. There are times, I remember, you know, I was irritated with my husband because on his days off, he was resting.
Yeah. How dare he?
And so I told my friend, I can't get mad at him because he knows how to relax and I don't. Because I get into this zone where I feel like if I'm not doing something, productive, then I'm wasting time.
It's not a valuable moment.
Right. It's like, oh, I could be doing this. I could be doing that. Instead of just relaxing, taking care of myself. So why am I getting mad at this man because he's listening to his body?
Listen, I remember I had a moment with my husband, Shalif. He's an interventional cardiologist, so he does expensive plumbing, right? And he needs to have the micromillimeter adjustment as he plumbs through people's arteries. And he came home and took a 15 to 20 minute nap. And this is our second marriage for both of us. So he came in with a immediate guilt. I'm so sorry, honey, I had to take a nap. And I looked at him and said, why are you sorry?
Right.
You need to go right back in there and get yourself another 30 minutes at least. I'll catch you on the other round. And he said, you're okay with that? And I said, yes, we're recently married. We're going to 2 years this year. Okay. And just seeing even him and I both being, how could you say, apologetic for resting. Babe, I'm sorry I fell asleep on the couch. I meant to da-da-da. Honey, and he looks at me and does the same thing. Honey, relax. Yeah. I got you for that. Yeah. And it's from the traumas of our past relationships, we brought that in, and at least we're allowing each other to heal. Yeah. But you're right. Giving the person that space to recover and also recognize that you're not giving it to yourself.
Yes.
Is key to make that adjustment. I tell people
all the time, I scream self-care, self-care, self-care all day until it's my self-care. Then I'm sitting around, I'm exhausted, I'm drained, and I don't know which way is up.
Right.
And I am horrible at taking my own advice. I'll tell people, oh, you need to relax.
Isn't that crazy? Your own book that you're building. Yeah. You're not reading and executing. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure I'll keep you on point then.
And just like the other day, you told me, oh, I got a massage, I'm getting my nails done. I was like, yes, take the time for self-care. And then I'm sitting here like, do I really need to go get my nails done, though? I could clean up the boys' room.
Right. No, I sent you the contact of the person that comes to my home to give us massages to immediately let you know, tap into that person. This is someone I rely on. This is someone I trust in my home. Feel free to get that to happen for you and your husband, as I did on Saturday for Shalif and I. And all we do is go downstairs to our main floor, and she shows up with everything and breaks all those knots. I call them cousins that are leaning on our bodies, and gets them out. But again, that's us, the ebb and flow of us helping each other out to get to that balanced space in our lives.
And I did. And I honestly, when I told you that, I was like, I am so glad that you are taking time in your marriage to honor each other, to have that date night, to have that time, because I think that is so important as well. I think a lot of times we get so caught up in being parents, we forget that we need to cultivate our own relationships as well.
Yes.
And that's something we're working on. I remember a long time ago, we said, oh, yeah, we're going to make sure to have a date night at least every month or every week or something like that. And then it kind of fell off. And then I get reminded because you remind me.
I put it on my phone. Yeah. It's a schedule because he has 3 jobs. I probably have 3 jobs. So it's on the calendar. Our date night is so meticulous. We even have Instagram sending us ideas of where to go out and eat. So I'll send him the link of, hey, we're going to such and such. It says it has good reviews. Date night for such and such. And we plug it in and it's literally on the calendar. We have support that comes in to take care of the kids. And just the same way he shows up for surgery and the same way I show up for the stock market or TV is the same way we show up for that date. And I make sure, I'm not always great at this, but I make sure to dress up as if I'm trying to make him choose me to be his wife. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm coming in with the heat. We're not coming in with the, I don't know what I'm looking like. I mean, maybe I'll dress up a little bit. No. I'm going to make these lashes. What I tell you, they're going to pop. They're going to pop. The lips is going to glow. It's going to be 3-dimensional. Yes. Because why not flirt with the one that you have in your room?
Exactly. I told him last night we went out and I looked at him and he was all dressed up. I said, oh, you looks good. I said, you need to look like this all the time. He's like, for what? To go pick up the kids from school? I said, no, for each other, something. I said, I'm not saying you got to be in a suit to go pick the kids up, but when we go out, we need to do it up.
Yes.
I mean, there are times I will actually look real nice and my kids will be like, what's happening here? Because they're so used to like mom that comes to pick them up at school and not mom that gets dressed up and looks good.
And you're setting a standard for them for when they look for their significant others to know that it's okay to glam it up once in a while.
Yes. And I don't even know why I'm acting like I don't like to be glam. I like it makes you feel good. When you look good, you feel good. That is so cliche. But yes, when you look good, you feel good. And I do. I have to always remember that as well. But it is so funny that, you mentioned that because even last night after when we went out on our date night, because, I had to, I tricked him because he doesn't usually like themed things. Yeah. And so it was nice to not be ourselves for a minute. We were dressed up. It was like a Harlem Renaissance theme.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, he kind of fussed because he doesn't like doing the themes, but we looked good.
I bet.
And we felt like other people.
Showstoppers.
So, we did. I love it. We did. And we were in community. It was a space where everybody else looked like us too. So it's nice when you're able to be in community. It is. So we felt comfortable. We were eating good. We were drinking good. And it was a nice night.
And you got to look into his eyes and he got to look into yours with no interruptions. Just each other.
Yes.
The original.
Yes.
We have couples that at the end of the day take the time to love each other. We have parents who are very present for their children with special needs, diverse learning strategies, or even growing up as beautiful boys in this culture.
Yes.
That expects different things from them. You're still showing up that way. I'm showing up for a newborn and a 14-year-old. Blended family. I mean,
especially like between the boys, my boys are 7 and 5.
Yes.
And there are sometimes I am raising like 2 completely different kids. And there are times where my youngest will do something and it just catches me off guard because I didn't have that experience with his brother. Or I just sit here and act like, why do I feel like I've forgotten everything when they're only a few years apart? But it is different, especially you have a huge gap.
14 years between the first and now my second born out of body, uterus born. And I say that because I have kids through my marriage with Shalif that are much older. So they're considered my kids as well. But out of me, that was a previous marriage. She has a different way of learning than the average. And she's a savant as a writer.
Yes.
But needs support in other areas. And we came to that understanding much later in her life. But now as a big sister, which is what she's always wanted, she's shown up in such a beautiful way. She has PowerPoint presentations for all the things her sister needs to learn, milestones, etc. So I don't even know what level of genius I thought I was going to build with her support. It's going to be insane. But everything available for parenting has changed. As a mom, we didn't have cameras and all these stuff. We have oxygen assessments for the babies while they sleep. There's a lot of support.
Socks to make sure that your child is breathing, and like you said, we didn't.
We didn't have that.
Even talking to my mom, because as you know, Panamanian women are just completely different.
Hey.
So when you bring in our culture, the things my mom is telling me to do for the kids, I have to sit here and tell her people don't
do that
no more.
We don't do that anymore.
No. So culturally, even when we bring in the Panamanian culture into it.
Dios mío. Los Panameños, we say.
Yeah.
I went to Panama to have Sophia, the firstborn, the 14-year-olds. I went to Panama, went to Punta Pacifica, stayed there. I figured worst case scenario, I wanted the doctors that took care of me to be present for my child. And they were. And she had a lot of Panama happening in her first month or 2. But Faye, we had her here in Phoenix. And I had great physicians, all that extra jazz. But to not have el arroz con pollo, the support food, the comforts of an extended amount of family around was different, And I managed through it. But the scenery that I was wanting, the green foliage, the beach down the street, that environment wasn't there, and I had to acclimate. Because in this new marriage, I want to make sure that he, with his busy schedule and patients needing his help, wasn't left out because I just took a flight to Panama.
Right.
So there's ebbs and flows of being Panamanian that, how much of your culture can you physically bring into the story and how much do you have to verbally create?
That's true. Even with us, sometimes we were, because, COVID and everything was going on, so we couldn't take the flights that we wanted back to Panama for a while. And just communicating with my family via WhatsApp or Zoom.
Yes.
And all the time, they would just tell them, dile que son panameños. And my husband's like, they're a little bit of me too. And it's like, the thing is, your family is here.
Yes.
They are not. So they always, it is, Panamanians just have this way. They want to make sure that they're represented all the time. They have this pride in culture.
Yes.
So, no, I will never forget to tell them que son panameños.
Yes.
They know it.
Y son bellos.
Gracias.
Bellos, beautiful Panamanian boys. My daughter's the same. And then I'm married into a Jamaican, Trinidadian culture. And the Jamaican culture and even Trinidad is very strong. So we have all these Afro-Antillanos, Afro-Caribbean cultures flowing with Faye. And to manage who is Faye today, is it the Jamaican coming out? Right. So I like to tease when she come in with that extra, I'll be like, mira eso, eh? There's a Jamaican side. When she smiles a lot, oh, that's a Panamanian side. So we've been playing games as to who, where, and what. But the culture is a beautiful thing to continue sharing. I remember when you posted the kids in their Panamanian attire. Yes. That was so beautiful and so powerful.
Yes, it is. And that was something I had wanted to make sure I recreated for my mother, for my grandmother. She's not with us, but I just wanted to make sure that it was something that my kids got to experience.
They looked so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful photo shoot.
Thank you. Thank you. And even, like you said, we're bringing in the culture. I remember early on, I knew I wanted the boys to learn Spanish. And I put my oldest son in a Spanish school. And it was great until I realized we got to a point where he just was not talking anymore. And I think that was even when I started looking into, well, let's see if something else might be going on with him before I got the autism diagnosis for my son. Because at this point, I thought he was hitting all his milestones. And it's like we just got to a point where everything just came to a halt. And I just wanted somebody to hear me. And I felt like nobody was listening to me because people feel like boys, they move a little bit slower than girls. So that's what they were telling me. Oh, and also because you're teaching him Spanish.
Right. They did that to me as well. The multilingual environment is why they're the recession in communication is because they have to manage all these different languages. And I didn't find that to be true.
Right.
Yeah, that happened with Sophia. And I believe that she's on a spectrum when it comes to autism as well, level 1. But I'm just learning of it recently. And honestly, as I assess it, the amount of work it takes at times to teach a child, because it's our first, we don't know any different. So we're working on things, and there's like English and languages, her strength, mathematics was not, so her recollection of things, her ability to focus wasn't there, but I was blaming it on, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that.
Right.
And anytime you go out to reach for help, a lot of times the answer is an excuse of some sort that they throw at you versus an inquisitive physician or assistant to look at it for what it is. I'm happy that you were able to diagnose it early. Mine came about probably at the age of 12 for her.
Right. And somebody asked me the other day if you could give advice to any Black mothers, mothers to be, what would it be? And I said, as a neurodiverse mom of neurodiverse children, always advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Especially in the healthcare setting, because our opinions and our feelings are valid. And especially with how the maternal death rate is. People are often not listening to us in healthcare settings. So make sure that you advocate for yourself.
Yeah, the advocacy is so key in making sure that our families understand that they need to advocate as well. So as we advocate for them, I'm elevating my daughter's speech to be able to say, as much as you can write 15 short stories, is as strong as I want you to be able to be in class and say, this is not working for me.
Right.
I want you to feel comfortable putting a line of demarcation without being disrespectful of what you need and what is being offered and the differences between the two things. Because empowering, in this case, you have 2 boys, have 2 girls. Empowering these young ladies to be able to sit back and say, okay, this is where I am.
Right.
This is where I can grow. And this is what I need you guys to be able to bring to the table as well, is kind of a dance that we'll do together. But more importantly, the fact that we as mothers are even encouraging our children in this way is huge.
Exactly. And I think that's really what I wanted to make sure I accomplished with my advocacy. I want them to be able to be comfortable enough to advocate for themselves when I'm not around.
Exactly.
Because I might not always be there.
That was my reality. My mom died when I was 9 years old, almost 10, of breast cancer. Phenomenal woman, captain for ships in the Panama Canal. Both parents were. So I came from this legacy of high levels of success and yes, we can kind of space. So my advocacy for self had to occur very early because my father, being on a ship for 14 hours through the Panama Canal transit, was generally not there. So in my style of upbringing the kids, it's been very heavy on me advocating. I also had a village of people that could show me things I didn't know.
Right.
You know, like yourselves, and I have several friends that could see it, Sophia, from a different angle. But now, to sit back and let her know, these are all mothers to you. This village of people will give you something I may not have. This is all the side effect of the fact that my mom passed away at such a young age. The domino effect of your life can really impact you for generations to come.
Exactly. And we also need to remember, you know, a lot of times people don't advocate the same way. So I always mention to people, if your advocacy doesn't include people who look like me, then you're not an advocate.
Right.
So that is like an added layer to what our children have to deal with. They're not just autistic, they're Black and autistic. You know, that is just an added layer that people need to understand.
Right. And even the way they communicate, the style of communication.
Right.
You know, as much as it's important for our children to continue developing and getting stronger, they also need to understand what things can be done in their favor that can make it much easier for them to transition through those spaces.
Yes.
What do you think is important when it comes to assessing how strong you are as a woman and what needs you have? How do you advocate for yourself?
Oh, man, that has been a work in progress. And that is something I really had to talk to my therapist about. Yes, therapy is not, you don't need therapy just when things are bad. You can have therapy when things are good. Therapy.
I agree.
I started talking to my therapist about some childhood trauma, and I realized that I was not taking care of myself as much as I should, and setting boundaries. Boundaries are very important. And she was the one who told me, you need to start setting boundaries, clear boundaries, and not back down from them. Because what happens is I will probably set a boundary and then I start feeling bad and I back off. Yeah. And I back off a little bit because I go into people pleasing mode. And now I'm anxious. I'm pretty much making myself sick because I'm worried about other people as opposed to myself. And honestly, there's this strong Black woman trope, you know, we have to be strong all the time.
All the time.
If we show any weakness at all, then we're just looked at different. You know, we don't want anybody to, we don't want anybody to like challenge our, you know, our parenting or anything like that. But sometimes you do. You have to take care of yourself.
Do you have a community of individuals around you that can step in when you're at your weakest point? Have you created a life support network?
You know, I will say I I have people, but a lot of them aren't here. And I think that's why it is so important to have people near you. Mm-hmm. And like now, I am creating. You are now in my village. Hey. You are now. And it's funny you say that. I was filling out my son's permission slip for a field trip. And it said, well, who can we call in case of an emergency if you or your husband can't pick him up? Mm-hmm. And we just looked at each other. Because we don't really, who am I supposed to call? Yes. Like somebody who can come and pick him up immediately. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we have friends or family members who don't live here, but in case of an emergency, who do we trust enough? Because we grew up in a different time too. Yes. We don't trust everybody. Right. We don't trust everybody with our kids. So that was something we had to think about. And I started sending messages like, hey, can I put you down in case of an emergency? Yeah. Would you be okay to come pick up my child? Right. You know, you have to start thinking hard.
Wow. And before, it was just this village mentality that included so many people for the best of us and also for the detriment of us, because I know some damage was caused when we were too open and bringing anybody into our village. So it has its pros and cons, but I'm happy that you're creating that space consciously.
I am. I feel like now I am getting to a good place where I'm being intentional with the people I consider friends or who I'm bringing into my circle, who I'm choosing to spend time with. Right. So it is kind of shaping up nicely. I'm feeling good about the people who I've got on my team.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's refreshing. It
is. It feels nice when you can say that, I've got, friend is used very loosely. But somebody you can call when you really need something, who isn't going to feel put out.
Right. Or out of their way, or why is it? Yeah. More than welcoming that ability to be able to be there for you. Such peace in that space too.
Yeah.
So when it comes to being a woman, when it comes to loving on our husbands, loving on ourselves, loving on our children, giving space for us to celebrate and recreate and evolve. Right. It's a beautiful thing that in our first meeting, we're actually talking about, those hardcore comments and hardcore segments of our lives where most people don't even give themselves a breath to evolve in. So I just want to thank you for creating a safe space for me to sit back and just share and learn with you,
Thank you.
When it comes to this. And for families out there, what would you say, that are listening to us right now? What would you say you want them to be able to pull from here?
And I'm glad that you mentioned the safe space because I think a lot of times people don't really know how to create safe spaces for everyone. And just because some people might feel safe, if everyone doesn't feel safe, then it's not a safe space. Especially as Black women, I feel that a lot of times the spaces are only safe for some of us, not all of us. And I'm happy and I'm blessed and I'm honored that I have made you feel safe enough where we can have this conversation, where you can trust me with your feelings and that we know that this is going to evolve into so much more. And for any families out there, this is the real.
100%.
This is the real. This is the person I always am all the time. So I do get the comments and the questions from people a lot wanting to know things. I'm an open book. If anybody ever wants to talk, if they have questions, come on. We can talk about it. So give me your questions, whatever questions you have, whatever you want me to cover, let me know. And I will try my hardest to do that for you. And if I can't, I'm going to find somebody else who can.
And that's a beautiful thing because it creates a revolving door. And as the questions come in, which they will come in, we're able to not only learn from the questions, create the answers and or network with the individuals that may have it. It just continues to get better and better.
It does. Thank you so much for being here with me.
It's a beautiful time. Claro que sí, mi amor. More times to come.
Yes. Yes.